Hey there, welcome back to High Infidelity, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to channel for more spicy stories. Now, let's get into today's story video. I'm just numb, don't know what to do. So honestly, I'm not sure what this is intended to be. It's definitely more of a vent post than a rage post. It's just sitting inside of me, and I need to get it out because I'm going insane. I believe my marriage was abusive, but we lived in a bubble in a city remote from our friends and family. So I have no outside frame of reference. I've simply been caught up in my own thoughts. So about a month ago, my SDBXW returned home after a vacation home and abruptly said that we needed to separate. I was devastated, and we sobbed for a while before I left for my hometown, which was just a few hours away. I accepted her word for it and believed that we were being honest with her, and I even began to empathize with her. I returned home for 2 nights, but all of my belongings were still there, and I was set to start a new job the next week, so I came home to attempt to work something out with her. That's when things started to become strange. She became enraged and accused me of being abusive. She threatened me to return to my home state and that if I ever touched her dog, she would kill me. I treated the dog better than she did. I loved him and I know she knows I would never hurt him. I didn't want her to be any more furious with me, so I said it was okay and returned to my family. The whole time I was there, she was unusually difficult to contact, would hardly speak to me, and when she did, it was brief. She would simply give me her thoughts about what was going on, almost as if she was just giving me an update. And then, once I tried to discuss or talk about mine, she became enraged and cut me off. She even threatened me with divorce since she knew how much I cared about it. This went on for approximately 2.5 weeks, with large stretches when I didn't speak to her. She eventually began to suggest we could chat, but she kept moving the date back and forth, using work as an excuse. It came to the point where I was wasting money trying to give her space, and I had my work start date put out, but it was coming up. So I returned home, but I didn't tell her I was staying in a motel close to our apartment. For a few days, I wanted to give her as much space as possible and not make her feel pressured. On a day when she was at work, I decided I wanted to go into the apartment, our apartment, with both of our names on the lease. All of my belongings were there, including my work clothes and food. That's when everything went downhill. So as soon as I walked in, I detected a strange cigarette scent, which was strange considering my wife never smoked and was very opposed to it. All of my belongings, well, not all of them, but the ones she believed I should have, were in boxes and totes against the wall. She had completely refurbished the place and removed all traces of me. This is when I realized something was wrong. I did something nefarious. I read her diary, and there it was. For nearly 7 months, she had been cheating on me with her closest friend back in her home state. This notebook described her increasing realization that she was in love with him, and the most recent entry recounted that they had when she was on vacation there lately. It was terrible, particularly since we were in the midst of attempting to expand our relationship, and I had indicated that things like being with someone else may perhaps be all right, as long as she attempted to trust me and had my best interests in mind. It was her idea to open the relationship. I phoned her at work and asked her quietly if anything had occurred while she was at home. I told her it was okay if she cheated on me, since I simply wanted to work with her. Her reaction was a really no, ugh, you're irritating. Nothing occurred because you weren't paying attention. And then I essentially called her out on everything, even reading her own diary to her. She continued attempting to deny it, but ultimately admitted it. I was really in disbelief. I had no clue this guy, who was intending to have my F-gang kid in the next year or two, could do this to me. I took all of my belongings out of the apartment, and when she arrived home from work, it was a disaster. She became enraged and said that I was invading her space by being at home. I informed her that it was literally my house as well, and that if she wanted to leave, the door was right there. I'm so anxious and numb that I can't adequately convey the train disaster that was the next several weeks, but things just got F-gang worse and F-gang worse. After confronting her, we cooled down and started talking, and we agreed that we needed a divorce, but that we could still work things out. But the next day, she became hostile and began to scream things like, "You are practically holding me hostage here. You got a chokehold on me," because I wasn't going to sign one of those simple online no-contest divorces with her that week. Then she resumed her threats, saying things like, "If you don't sign the divorce papers tonight, I'm going to go back home, burn all of our belongings, erase our photos, and never speak to you again. You won't hear from me again." This was effing horrible because I still love this lady. Literally a little over 2 months ago, she was telling me that she never wants me to get pregnant for anyone else but her, and that she was so glad that I was taking care of her and loving her as much as I did. So things settled down the following day, and she began to be incredibly kind, holding my hand and sitting on my lap, kissing my head. She apologized and called us by our pet names. I don't know why I trusted her, but I did. I was all set to sign the paperwork and get her out of the lease that day, but something in the back of my mind told me something wasn't right. When she left for work that day, I went to check on the Apple Watch we shared, and it was as if my spirit had left my body. She'd been telling her friends that she was only attempting to get a cheap divorce out of me, despite her claim that the divorce had imprisoned her, and that she may have to sleep with me to obtain it. She and her pals were talking about how awful I was for even considering having with her. I wasn't, and how she was afraid it would make her friend, who she was in love with, love her less. So I contacted her again at work and asked if she was really about wanting things to improve between us, apologizing for whatever stress I had given her. She claimed she was, that she was sorry, that she still wanted to work with me, and that she was being truthful since I found out about the affair via her journal. I burst out laughing and called her out on her nonsense, and then things got much worse. After a night of fighting and shouting, she was back to threatening me with never seeing me again and claiming that she was simply trying to get her divorce and get away from me. So she moved out to live with a coworker, and over the following week we gradually untangled all of our belongings. I pulled her out of the lease, and she paid her portion on our joint credit card. All of this occurred as she threatened to sever contact and burn all of our belongings. She'd openly speak trash about me to her pals through text in front of me, claiming she was doing it. When things were peaceful and we felt like we were working together, she kept bringing up this new man. He had apparently urged her to quit her marriage for him, and he was planned on leaving his engagement for her. He had also been with someone for 6 years. They had moved in together, and they had joint dogs and property. Their families were acquainted. My STBXW told me how she believed this person was her friend, that she could trust him, and that she felt close to him. I began long-distance dating her after just knowing her for a month, so we were partners before we were friends in every manner. She said that if this AP was married to her and she wanted a divorce, he would grant it to her without question. She proceeded to compare me to him, berate me with things, saying I was weaker, less proficient, earned less money. Not to be defensive or anything, but it's all stuff I know for a fact is absolutely incorrect, like I'm 6'2" in exercise, and this man is 5'5" and rail thin, for example. Other than her saying this garbage to me, it doesn't matter, and so on. The saddest part is that she blames me for losing her forever, telling her new partner that I failed to connect with her in meaningful ways, and that all we had was gone because of me. She claims that I set the tone for our relationship by being negligent in the first year of our relationship, 3 years before we married, and that she will always blame me for allowing it to get to this point. These are details for perspective, my side, as I have to state for my sanity. We met long distance. She was a worker I met via work, no judgment. It doesn't matter outside of the scenario of not knowing what her aim was, and I was pursuing a double STEM degree at a fairly good institution while working a part-time job. As a last-ditch attempt, I had just returned to school after years of difficulty maintaining attendance due to my mental condition. She came to live with me. She worked but remained in the flat that my family had paid for. I was nervous throughout the first few months of our relationship, but I planned dates and purchased gifts, and we had great chemistry and true love. Our mental illness did have an impact on our communication, but it only showed up when we had to deal with life issues, and even then, it improved. We needed money to support her through school when I finished, so I took a gig job that paid twice what a beginning position in my sector did. I was the primary earner from the time I graduated until she obtained a job in her industry around 10 months ago. I also cared for the dog and our other pets, went grocery shopping, traveled everywhere, planned excursions, paid bills, dealt with landlords, and did other housework. Honestly, I came up with the most of the date ideas we had. The things we connected over, for the most part, came from me or my side. And at the end of the relationship, while she was working, I was essentially house dad. Every day, I drove her to work and picked her up. Had to wait a half hour every shift she had to get her. I prepared her special diet meals. Every day, I cared for the animals and cleaned the home. Trips and dates have been set. Every night, I lay and snuggled with her. Not that I was flawless or anything, but I effing tried, and I don't think I was negligent. Then the unthinkable occurred. She was preparing to leave the city in a few weeks, so I went home merely to ship some things and make ready for my relocation. She phoned and texted me once, saying she wanted to meet me the following day, but I was busy and just doing my own thing. I contacted her late the following day when I returned to my city to check what was going on. She said that she had changed her relocation date to tomorrow. I freaked out and blew up her phone since there's a big chance we'd never see one another again, and I wanted to say goodbye at the very least because I still love her. She ignored my calls and then called back, saying she could see me for a few minutes. I pick her up and we have a brief chat about the future, one of the most difficult talks I've ever had. She strolled inside her coworker's apartment and said, "Perhaps I'll see you again one day." All night I sobbed and drank. I couldn't stop myself. And then it hit me the next day. She was perfectly fine after all, just leaving like that and never seeing me again. I could understand the other things, the cheating and everything, if I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I knew she was selfish, and I can understand her conduct if she really considered me as an impediment to her pleasure. But something about leaving like that, knowing that she knows she would never see me again, and knowing that if it had been that buddy, she would have bent over sideways just to see him. I don't believe I've ever felt more agony in my life. I still can't believe it. She's returned home, and I haven't heard anything from her. A loss. I apologize if this seems like I have no clue how I'm coming across. My mind feels a bit foggy as a result of the alcohol and the lack of food. Thank you for attending my TED lecture.